My name is Shirley Jackson, and I'm 35 years old. If you had told me a year ago that I would end up documenting the implosion of my 6-year relationship, I would have laughed and gone back to debugging code. I thought my life was stable. I thought William and I were solid. I thought the future we quietly planned together, marriage, a house, maybe a dog was waiting patiently for us to step into it. I couldn't have been more wrong. I work in IT, which means long nights, constant crises, and the glamorous experience of eating cold pizza while staring at error logs. My boyfriend William Blake is 33 and works part-time at an art gallery. He always said the job was soul-fulfilling, even though it barely covered his half of our shared expenses. I never complained. I loved him, and I believed relationships weren't built on balancing spreadsheets. The first shift came 2 months ago. William began asking questions that felt harmless at first, questions any partner might ask. One evening, he was sitting on our bed, scrolling through notifications on my phone, when I walked in. He looked up at me and asked, "Who keeps messaging you this late?" I told him it was my brother. A week later, he asked why I was smiling at my phone. Another time, he asked why I hadn't answered his call during lunch. I explained again and again, but each answer only seemed to raise more suspicions for him. Then the boundary pushing began. He started checking my laundry just in case. He'd hover near the door when I grabbed my purse for work. He once asked me, completely seriously, if he could read my work email to help calm his mind. His tone shifted too. It was less about love and more about monitoring me. I tried to brush it off as insecurity or stress. William could be dramatic sometimes, but never hostile. Still, something in his eyes lately made me uneasy, as if he was studying me, waiting for me to slip. Everything came to a head at a barbecue with friends. We were chatting and laughing under string lights in someone's backyard when William suddenly walked up to me, stiff and pale. Without warning, he said loudly, "Shirley, can you explain why you've been so distant?" I stared at him stunned as conversations around us died off. When I tried to de-escalate, he raised his voice, demanding that I tell everyone here that I wasn't cheating on him. I was mortified. Friends shifted awkwardly in their seats. Someone muttered, "Dude, not the time," but William wouldn't stop. I finally walked away before I burst into tears. At home, a storm waited for me. He accused me of sleeping with someone at work, insisted my long hours were an excuse, and demanded I attend marriage counseling to prove my loyalty. That sentence, "prove my loyalty," was the moment something inside me sharpened. The entire situation felt wrong, forced, almost rehearsed. His aggression didn't feel like insecurity. It felt like deflection. The therapist inside my mind whispered a word that made my stomach turn projection. That night, after William finally fell asleep, I sat alone on the staircase with my phone in my hand and a cold knot in my chest. I called a private investigator, a former detective recommended by a friend. I told him everything, the accusations, the sudden hostility, the public humiliation, the way William was so fixated on cheating, despite having no evidence. The PI listened quietly and then said something that made my pulse quicken. People who scream the loudest about betrayal are usually the ones betraying. I didn't want to believe that, but deep down I already knew something was off. He told me he needed 2 weeks of surveillance photos, videos, timestamps, everything. I agreed. I went to bed next to a man who had just accused me of cheating, knowing that by morning someone would be watching him instead. The PI didn't even need the full 2 weeks. By Wednesday of the first week, he texted me asking if I was somewhere private. I stepped out of my office building, walked past the smokers area, and stood alone beside a concrete pillar. That's when he sent the first photo, William at a coffee shop leaning across a small table, fingers intertwined with a woman's hand. The woman was smiling at him the way I used to. Everything inside me went cold, not sharp like anger, but dull and heavy with recognition. I wasn't surprised. I was devastated, yes, but not surprised. That in itself hurt more than the cheating. The PI forwarded more footage. Another morning, same cafe, different clothes, same woman. A short kiss in the parking lot before they parted ways. Then on Thursday, he followed them to a motel, the Riverside Inn, the kind of place you avoid making eye contact with. They checked in at 11:07 a.m. and came out just after 2 p.m. Friday, they met again at a different motel, as if variety made it less shameful. My hands shook as I watched the videos. I'd expected some kind of confirmation, but the clarity of it, the angles, the timestamps. William's face pressed against someone else's felt like a blow to the ribs. That night I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even confront him. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table long after he'd gone to bed and realized something with startling clarity. William wasn't just cheating. He'd been weaponizing guilt to distract me while he did it. Every accusation, every dramatic scene, every teary question about trust, it all lined up perfectly. He wanted me so busy defending myself that I wouldn't notice him slipping away. I decided to expose him the only way he'd never see coming, by telling the people he cared about most. William's parents are traditional family-first type of people. They adore him, and frankly, they'd always treated me with respect. I called them and asked if they could come over on Sunday because I had something important to talk about. His father's voice tightened with concern. "Is everything all right, Shirley?" I said it would make more sense in person. They agreed immediately. Sunday came. William was lounging on the couch in sweatpants, scrolling through his phone when his parents knocked on the door. He looked up confused. "Why are my parents here?" he asked. I didn't answer. I opened the door and welcomed them in. His mother hugged me warmly. I felt guilty, even though guilt was the last thing I deserved. William stood up, clearly thrown off. "Okay, what's going on?" I gestured toward the living room. "We need to talk as a group." Something in my voice must have unsettled him because he suddenly looked nervous. I'd already connected my laptop to the TV. When everyone sat down, I took a deep breath and began. "William has been accusing me of cheating for 2 months, repeatedly, publicly, aggressively." His father frowned. "He mentioned something about trust issues, yes." And because of that, I continued. I decided to clear the air. I hired a private investigator. William shot up from the couch. "What, you did what?" His mother looked alarmed. "William, sit down," his father ordered. I clicked play. The first video appeared on the TV. William, at the cafe, his fingers laced with the woman's. His mother gasped. His father sat forward slowly, hands clasped between his knees. William's face drained of color. "Shirley." "What the hell is this?" he snapped. I ignored him and played the next clip, the kiss in the parking lot. Then the motel footage. William and the woman walking toward a room, his hand on her back. His mother covered her mouth. His father's face darkened. William tried to shout over the silence. You had someone follow me." "That's stalking. That's manipulative. It's legal," I said calmly, "and necessary, considering you were accusing me of something you were actually doing." His mother sobbed softly. His father's voice came out low and stern. "William, is this true? Are you having an affair?" William tried the waterworks, the tremble in the voice, the soft pleading eyes he'd used on me so many times. "Dad, it's not what it looks like. Shirley's been distant. She works all the time. I was lonely. I made a mistake." His father cut him off sharply. "Who is she, Silence? Who is she, William?" Finally, he muttered. "Someone from the gallery." I almost laughed. He'd told me he had a staff meeting those mornings. Another lie stacked on the pile. I stood. "I'm done," I said quietly. "I'm ending this relationship. I'm separating from you, starting today." His mother cried harder. His father shook his head in disappointment, not at me, at his son. When his parents left, they barely spoke to him. His father didn't even offer a goodbye hug. As soon as the door closed, William's shock turned to rage. He accused me of destroying his life, violating his privacy, manipulating his parents, and humiliating him. I didn't respond. I went to the bedroom, locked the door, and slept in the guest room that night. By morning, the war had begun. William called everyone we knew and spun a different version of the story. According to him, I was a controlling, paranoid girlfriend who stalked him with a PI and twisted harmless interactions into cheating. His friends bombarded me with messages. His sister called me a psychopath. Even a couple of my own friends asked why I'd go that far. I sent each doubter the cafe footage. Just the cafe, nothing more. Most of them went quiet. But William's core group doubled down. People make mistakes. Relationships need communication. Maybe you should have tried harder. Tried harder. I'd been trying so hard that I ignored the collapse happening right in front of me. Then things turned financial. We shared one joint checking account for bills. I make about $95K. He makes around $40K. 3 days after the confrontation, I checked the account. William had withdrawn $8,000. He left just enough for a week of groceries and a fraction of the mortgage. I called him immediately. "Where's the money?" I demanded. "My money," he said casually. "I needed it for a security deposit." I'm moving out. And since you're the one who wants the separation, you can cover the bills. I paid the mortgage from my personal savings. Then I called my lawyer and documented everything. But William wasn't done. He showed up at my office building 2 days later, crying in the lobby, claiming I was ruining his life. Security had to escort him out. The next day, he came back yelling that I was turning everyone against him. He accused me of sending videos to people I hadn't even spoken to. It didn't matter. Reality and his version of events were no longer connected. And then came the moment that made my blood boil in a way nothing else had. I went to grab something from the study where I kept a small glass display case, a case containing the last thing my grandmother gave me before she passed away, her engraved brass compass, the only heirloom I owned. It was gone. I tore the room apart. Then I texted William, "Where's my grandmother's compass?" He responded, "I don't know what you're talking about." He knew exactly what I was talking about. My lawyer told me to stay calm and let the courts handle it. Avoid confrontations. Document everything. So I did, and slowly I began preparing for the next chapter, the courtroom, where lies shrivel under light. The week before our first court hearing, William's behavior escalated in ways I could never have predicted. It was almost impressive how quickly he transitioned from guilty partner to righteous victim. His lawyer sent a formal demand letter, the kind designed to intimidate. According to William, he deserved half of everything. Half of my savings, half of my retirement contributions, even the part I'd earned long before we ever met. He wanted spousal support, $2,000 a month for at least 3 years. He wanted the house either sold or bought out at full value. He wanted me to pay his legal fees. And he wanted full custody of my dog, the golden retriever I adopted before I even knew he existed. My lawyer blinked at the letter, then burst into a laugh she tried to stifle with a cough. "They're posturing," she said. "None of this will hold up, especially not with adultery involved." Still, the gall of it all made my skin crawl. For William, cheating hadn't been enough. Publicly humiliating me wasn't enough. Taking my grandmother's compass wasn't enough. Now he wanted to financially devour me too. But he was only getting started. 2 days later, HR called me into their office. When I entered the conference room, 2 HR managers sat with tight smiles and open laptops. "Shirley." One of them began, "We received allegations that you've been using company resources to conduct personal surveillance and spreading rumors among staff." It took me a moment to register what I was hearing. He'd reported me to my job, my stable, hard-won career, my livelihood. I explained calmly that the PI was hired with my personal funds and personal laptop outside working hours, and that I had never discussed my personal issues at work. They accepted my explanation, but I could feel the humiliation burning under my skin. The audacity of William attempting to sabotage the one part of my life he'd never earned his way into. And still it got worse. That Friday night, at around 11 p.m., someone began pounding on my front door. I froze for a moment, heart thundering, before checking the camera feed. William. He was standing on my porch, hair, disheveled eyes, wild, shouting my name. "Shirley. Open the door. You owe me a conversation." I stayed silent. His shouting grew louder, more erratic. After 20 minutes, the neighbors were peeking through curtains. Eventually, someone called the police. When officers arrived, William immediately played the victim. "She won't let me get my things," he insisted. "She's barricaded me out." I stepped outside, phone in hand, and showed the officers the email chain detailing 3 separate pickup times his lawyer scheduled and William no-showed each one. The officers turned to him with flat, unimpressed expressions. "Sir, you need to coordinate through the legal arrangements already in place," one officer said. "You need to leave." William tried to stall, insisting he needed emotional closure, that I had warped his life, that I was cold and manipulative. The officers didn't care. They escorted him back to his car and stayed until he drove away. The next morning, I woke up to a message from my PI. "You need to see this." He sent a screenshot, a public Facebook post by a man I didn't recognize. He appeared to be on a hiking trail, sunlight shining behind him. His arm was wrapped around a woman, the woman William was having an affair with. She was smiling brightly, leaning into him, as if nothing in her life was wrong. They looked annoyingly happy. But that wasn't what made me drop my phone. Around the man's neck hung a chain, and on that chain, dangling in the center of the photo, was my grandmother's brass compass. My breath left my body in one violent exhale. There it was, the heirloom William swore he didn't touch. hanging like a trophy around the neck of his affair partner's husband. The PI texted again. Looks like William gifted it to her, or she took it. Either way, we have the proof you needed. I sent the screenshot to my lawyer immediately. She replied within minutes. This is excellent for us. Terrible for them. Keep everything. Don't engage. By the time our temporary orders hearing arrived, William showed up looking exhausted, newly humble, with a suit that didn't quite fit. His affair partner wasn't with him. His parents didn't come either. I sat on my side of the courtroom with my lawyer, calm and prepared. When the judge entered and proceedings began, my lawyer systematically laid out the timeline, the surveillance evidence, the public affair, the withdrawal of $8,000 without consent, the harassment at my workplace, the false HR report, the late-night door pounding, and finally, the compass. William's lawyer tried to twist the narrative. My client was emotionally vulnerable, he insisted. He acted out of distress. The marriage had been deteriorating. Ms. Jackson responded with disproportionate measures. The judge turned to William. Mr. Blake, did you withdraw $8,000 from the joint account after the separation? William swallowed hard. Yes, but... Did you take Ms. Jackson's family heirloom? He stammered. I didn't. It must have been an accident. My lawyer stood. Your Honor, if I may. She walked to the evidence display screen and pulled up the Facebook photo. William's affair partner on a nature trail smiling beneath the compass that belonged to my grandmother. The judge stared at it for a long moment, then shifted her gaze back to William. Is this the item in question? She asked. William looked like he wanted to melt through the floor. I don't know how she got that. That is not an answer, the judge said sharply. His lawyer jumped in, voice thin and desperate. Your Honor, my client has suffered significant emotional hardship. Emotional hardship does not justify theft or financial misconduct, the judge snapped. And adultery, while not criminal, significantly undermines your client's credibility. William's shoulders crumpled. His eyes glistened. For the first time in weeks, he looked genuinely scared. The judge delivered her temporary orders with crisp, decisive authority. The house remains in my possession. I continue paying the mortgage, but William gets no financial claim over it. William receives the car but must start making his own payments. No spousal support until the final hearing. He must return the compass within 48 hours or face contempt charges. Each party covers their own legal fees for now. I retain full custody of my dog. William is barred from approaching my home or workplace. When the judge left, William broke down, crying in the hallway, collapsing into a bench, wailing about injustice and how the system is rigged. His lawyer tried to soothe him, glancing at me with an exhausted, defeated look. I didn't say a word. I walked past him with my lawyer beside me, my heels steady on the marble floor. For the first time, I felt something shift inside me. Not fear, not rage, but power. Not the vindictive kind, the self-preserving kind. The kind you discover only after someone tries to dismantle your entire life. And I knew the storm wasn't over yet, but for the first time, I also knew I could win. 48 hours came and went. No compass, no message, no acknowledgement. William had always been reckless, but ignoring a judge's order wasn't just reckless, it was stupid. My lawyer filed a motion for contempt, and the hearing was scheduled almost immediately. Maybe William assumed he could talk his way out of it again. Maybe he thought crying in front of the judge a second time would work. Or maybe he genuinely believed rules simply didn't apply to him. 2 days before the contempt hearing, I found a plastic grocery bag on my front doorstep. Inside it, wrapped in nothing unprotected, was my grandmother's compass. The glass face was scratched. The brass casing had a new dent in it, a dent that hadn't been there when I last saw it, a dent that also didn't happen during my grandmother's military service, but sometime during William's meltdown of a life. I stared at it for a long time, not because I wanted to cry, but because it symbolized something so much bigger. It was carelessness disguised as apology. It was disrespect disguised as compliance. It was William in object form, broken, mishandled, thoughtlessly tossed aside, and handed back only when forced by authority. My lawyer advised me to let it go. We got it back, she said. Don't push this one. Sometimes dignity comes from stepping back. I didn't argue. But for the first time since this entire disaster began, I felt anger sharp, clean, and deserved. Not the confusion or humiliation William had forced onto me, but real anger born from clarity. Meanwhile, William's life was collapsing in real time, and it wasn't because of anything I did. His affair partner's husband. The man wearing my compass in that Facebook post filed for divorce. Their social circle found out exactly how the affair started. Apparently, William underestimated how quickly a chain reaction spreads when two families and a dozen mutual friends get involved. William and the woman tried to stay together for a while, clinging to their shared misery, but that lasted maybe 3 weeks after the court hearing. Then she ended it through a text message. According to a mutual acquaintance, her message was short. "This is too much. I can't handle your drama." Drama he caused. Drama he fed. Drama he tried to bury under lies and tears and manipulation. I didn't respond when William called me a week later, sobbing into my voicemail. "You ruined my life, Shirley. You ruined everything. I hope you're happy." I forwarded the voicemail to my lawyer. She filed it under ongoing harassment. Then came the final divorce settlement hearing. Technically, we weren't married, but we had shared assets, cohabitation, and financial entanglements that required the equivalent of a divorce process. By that point, William looked exhausted, dark circles unshaven, wearing the same ill-fitting suit from the previous hearing. His lawyer looked equally drained, as though William had sucked the will to fight out of her too. The judge reviewed everything again. The PI evidence, the financial misconduct, the harassment incidents, the compass theft, the attempts to get me fired, the false accusations, the emotional volatility. William's lawyer tried to argue that the state's no-fault policies meant adultery shouldn't impact asset division. My lawyer countered calmly and methodically that judges still have broad discretion, and William's behavior demonstrated deliberate bad faith. The judge agreed. The final judgment was delivered. The house remains fully mine. William's name is removed. I owe him a modest settlement, far smaller than what he demanded, reflecting only the actual financial contribution he made. My retirement account remains largely untouched. He receives only a fraction from the years we lived together. He keeps the car and the loan attached to it. No spousal support, permanent or temporary. He pays half his own legal fees. I retain full ownership and custody of my dog. A restraining order remains in place for the next year. William cried openly through the entire hearing, wiping his face with the sleeve of his suit jacket. His lawyer sat still, staring straight ahead. When the judge dismissed us, William rushed toward me in the hallway. "Shirley, please," he begged, breath hitching. "Can't we talk? Just the two of us?" I didn't slow down. "We're done, William. We have nothing to talk about." He stepped in front of me, forcing me to stop. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I was confused. I made mistakes. You know I didn't mean to hurt you." I looked at him, really looked at him for the first time in months, and I realized something simple. I wasn't afraid of him anymore. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I felt nothing. Absolutely nothing. "You didn't make mistakes," I said quietly. "You made choices, and now you're living with them." His face crumpled. Before he could collapse into another dramatic performance, his sister arrived, grabbed him by the arm, and pulled him away with a glare that could cut glass. For a few weeks afterward, I heard through the grapevine that he'd moved back in with his parents. His mother was cold toward him. His father barely talked to him. His affair partner blocked him on everything. His gallery job cut his hours after the scandal spread. Even his friends, the ones who called me a psychopath during the smear campaign, began distancing themselves once the truth became unavoidable. Then his mother called me. "I know things are over between you two," she said, her voice trembling. "But William is struggling. He's not eating well. He's depressed. He's overwhelmed. Could you maybe help him, just a little?" "No," I said calmly. She gasped softly. "Don't you have any compassion?" "I did," I said. "He burned it." She hung up on me. But I didn't feel guilty, not for 1 second. Compassion isn't owed to someone who tried to destroy your livelihood, your sanity, and your future. Compassion isn't currency. And mine wasn't available to William anymore. Meanwhile, my life began to rebuild itself almost naturally. The weight of his presence lifted. My house felt like mine again. I repainted the living room, rearranged the furniture, and found small ways to reclaim happiness. Scented candles, warm, lighting a new coffee table that didn't remind me of our arguments. My dog was happier too, tail wagging, more sleeping, curled at my feet like he finally felt safe. Work improved. My boss commended my resilience during a chaotic quarter. 2 months later, I received a promotion, more responsibility, better pay, and a team I respected. I started going to therapy, working through the emotional debris William had left behind. I learned to identify red flags I had ignored. I learned to take up space again. I even started seeing someone new, a kind man named Daniel. We kept things casual at first. He was gentle, patient, Nothing like William. No games, no emotional traps, no twisting of words. It felt peaceful. One evening after dinner, I placed my grandmother's compass on a new display stand. The dent still bothered me, but not in the way it once did. It wasn't a wound anymore. It was a reminder of what I survived. A reminder that I stood up for myself even when everything around me was crumbling. A reminder that I didn't break, I rebuilt. And as I stared at that dented compass reflecting the soft golden glow of my living room lamp, I realized something with absolute clarity. I didn't lose anything of value. He did, and that loss was something he would carry long after I was done thinking about him. In the weeks following the final hearing, the dust finally settled, and what was left behind felt strangely quiet. Not peaceful quiet, at least not at first, but the kind of silence that happens after a long storm when the world hasn't yet decided if the danger has truly passed. I spent my mornings drinking coffee in my newly rearranged living room, staring at the dented compass on the shelf. It didn't hurt to look at anymore. If anything, it grounded me. William tried reaching out a few more times, despite the restraining order. None of his attempts were dramatic enough to break the law, but each message was a mix of self-pity and delusion. "I can't believe you're doing this," he wrote in one. "I don't deserve to be alone." In another, "We should talk. Closure would help both of us." And in one particularly unhinged email, he added, "If you cared about me at all, you wouldn't let me suffer like this. My lawyer advised me not to respond to keep documenting everything. So I did. Screenshots, dates, times. A clean trail of proof." Meanwhile, I learned pieces of William's unraveling from mutual acquaintances, people who didn't take sides but couldn't resist sharing updates. His affair partner had completely blocked him. Her husband finalized their divorce and moved out of state, taking their kids with him. William's hours at the gallery were cut again, and by the end of the month, he was down to 1 shift a week. He moved into his childhood bedroom, which made him furious. He kept insisting he wasn't a loser, even though every part of his life contradicted that statement. His mother eventually stopped trying to get me involved. His father told a mutual friend that William needed to face the consequences like a grown man. For the first time, his own parents weren't willing to excuse him. That more than anything else seemed to break him. But while his world kept shrinking, mine slowly expanded. I found myself enjoying small things again. Fresh flowers on the kitchen island. Music playing. While I cooked, the freedom of knowing no one was monitoring my schedule or questioning my every move. I took my dog on longer walks, explored new coffee shops, reconnected with friends William had quietly driven away. It felt like rediscovering parts of myself I hadn't realized I lost. Daniel and I took things slow by design. He wasn't trying to fill a void or replace anything. He was simply present. He listened without judgment, laughed easily, and made simple moments sharing a meal. Taking a stroll, sitting on my porch during a cool evening, feel warm again. There were no accusations, no guilt trips, no emotional traps. He didn't make me feel like I had to earn basic kindness. That alone felt revolutionary. One night after Daniel left, I sat at my kitchen table with the compass in my hands. I ran my finger over the dent. It used to trigger anger, but now it felt like a scar that had healed over visible, but no longer painful. I realized that no matter what William had taken from me, no matter the damage he tried to inflict, he never actually broke me. He tried. He pushed. He manipulated. He lied. He cheated. He stole. But in the end, all he really managed to do was reveal who he truly was. And who I truly was. A woman who learned to trust her instincts again. A woman who learned to stand her ground. A woman who learned that peace isn't something someone gives you. It's something you reclaim. A few days later, I received a letter from my lawyer confirming the last loose end William had defaulted on paying back the $6,000 the court ordered. She was filing enforcement paperwork. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not anger, just neutrality. The situation was no longer mine to carry. Weeks passed, then months. Life returned to something resembling normalcy. And then one quiet Sunday morning, as I was folding laundry, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. A voicemail. William's voice filled the room. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I know you won't talk to me, but I needed to say it. I'm trying to be better." I deleted it. I didn't save the recording. I didn't forward it to my lawyer. I didn't analyze his words or replay the tone of his voice. I didn't feel the need to. It wasn't because I forgave him. It was because I didn't care anymore. that I realized was the real victory in difference, the moment he no longer had space in my heart or my mind. That evening, as the sun set through my living room window, I placed the compass back onto its shelf. The dent caught the light just slightly, forming a small glint, almost like a wink. A reminder of who I used to be. A reminder of what I overcame. A reminder that no matter how much someone tried